Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today. I want to begin by apologizing for the delay in getting this podcast out. I have been trying to work with an individual on an interview that I told you about back some time with an individual that has had a near-death experience, which I was really excited to talk to them about. But the interview kept falling through. We kept having issues every time we scheduled it. Something would happen and on their end, and we had to reschedule. So I'll see if we can get that going. But there have been some issues, and with that, this topic has been coming up during this interim, has been coming up for me, both in sessions that I've been doing, conversations I've been having with individuals, and for me personally, and that is boundaries and the importance of them. Vital, crucial, any word you want to put on it, any adjective you want to use. Boundaries are absolutely imperative to your spiritual work, to your personal well being, to movements going forward in growth. We need them. I actually read this one website some time ago, Dharma Wisdom. It says in there, unhealthy or non existent boundaries are the cause of much suffering. And that was a statement that I truly agree with because without boundaries, so much is we lose focus on ourselves and others when we don't have healthy boundaries. So it's something that you definitely want to be aware of. Now, there are three types of boundaries that you can have: physical, emotional, and spiritual boundaries. And I recommend beginning to dissect them in each area and begin to set very specific and very stringent boundaries in each. And you could start off small and then slowly grow. And because you want to see what area are you being affected most and what areas not, I don't want to say let go of, but maybe redirect your focus a little bit because the priority, maybe you're too physical or too much. The physical boundaries are more like how you interact with other people. I'm not talking about exercise, although that, maybe you do, maybe you overexert yourself and you need to step back. That is absolutely a possibility. As a matter of fact, I actually have that or had that on a physical level where in school, I'm a teacher with kids with special needs, and I have a group of staff who are amazing and help me tremendously. But what I noticed after a time period was I was trying to take too much from them. And I was trying to do too much to make their jobs easier. I was taking too much of their responsibilities and putting it on myself. And what I found out was I was making myself too stressed by taking on too much physical exertion. I was um, handling all behaviors, working with every student that I could, and not really giving them the opportunity to really show me, hey, we got this. And I know they were capable of it. It wasn't that I didn't think they were capable, but I was just so concerned with taking it from them because I was trying to give them a break and I was not setting good boundaries for myself. I am slowly beginning to step back from there and really set some boundaries where, okay, hey, I trust you. I know you got this. You handle that situation. And I am beginning to find that it is really taken a lot off me. My shoulders now feel much lighter because I do trust and I have set those boundaries in trusting. Trusting in that they are physically capable of doing that, doing a job, but also in the physical aspect, how do we interact with people? So I'm a very physical person. I do appreciate the power of a touch. So throughout my day, I'm constantly giving people fist bumps, or as they walk by me, tap them on their shoulder. To me, physical touch is an energetic transfer, and I send love in every direction that I go. However, there are people that are not there yet, that don't necessarily feel that. Maybe their chakra system is not fully open, and their sacral chakra is not working at its optimal level. Sorry, I'm getting a charger here. And that's okay. They're we're all working through our process. So what we must be aware of is that not everybody likes that physical touch. There are some people who come in, you'll see families come in and immediately, maybe a grandmom or an aunt is like, get in here, and they want to give you a hug and kiss. And some kids or adults are like, ooh, step back a little bit, don't like that. That is a boundary. That's a physical boundary that we must set. And it is okay. Even in a family setting, it is okay to say no, thank you. Now, will that cause some issue? Possibly. Most likely in some situations, but that's okay. Your boundary is more important than an issue that it might cause or a feeling that might get hurt from someone else. Um, Boundaries are, if a relationship is meant to be, if someone truly loves you and truly wants to be around you and have your presence with them, the boundary is crucial to maintaining that relationship. Because if you continuously subject yourself to a boundary that you are refusing to enforce, ultimately you might begin to distance yourself from that person. And if by setting that boundary, that person then distances themselves, then it wasn't meant to be. But you have to be okay with that. It is so important to your well being and to their well being, or to their energetic vibration. So, yeah, boundaries help actually establish stronger relationships, and can help in, I'm sorry, can help lessen the amount of low vibrational feelings that you have to work through by setting these boundaries. You can begin to become more healthy. Also, a physical one is how much, just like in school, how much am I doing? How much am I taking of my own energy to take from someone else's, or to help them not feel a certain way? For instance, someone's moving and they ask you for help, but you are feeling run down and you really need a day to help yourself get back to your energetic vibration. You need to set that boundary and say, I am really sorry. I want to help you, but I am already feeling run down and I need to take my time to go and to center myself, to ground myself, to do what I need to do to get my energy level back up. So, so, so important. And I'll tell you, givers, people that give, people that live from the heart, are, they will struggle with this because we feel light workers. Light workers want to take the pain from other people. Absolutely. It is a thing that we have to deal with, but it is not something that we must realize. These, us light workers, us givers, must realize that that's not our job. Our job is not to steal someone else's pain. So true. It is not. It is to maybe help um, show them how to set a clear boundary for the both, for the relationship to continue. That actually might be, like, that is an extremely beneficial and strong lesson for someone to learn, especially as a giver, both on both ends, both the giver and the individual receiving or asking for the assistance. So if we can learn these boundaries and truly live within them, we're going to be doing the world a service. And there's going to be a lot of healing that takes place because, as the Dharma Wisdom website said, it is, let me see if I can find that address. It is the, oh, dharmawisdom.org. There you go. Um, is where I got that. Uh, Unhealthy or non-existent boundaries are the source or cause of much suffering. So, but they have to start and end with you. You have to set your boundaries and you have to be disciplined in that. And without it, you could be causing yourself a lot of issue, a lot of stress, a lot of low vibrational feelings that aren't obviously helpful to you. Now, emotional boundaries, you could argue that um, some of the situations that I've already given you, the taking the pain from someone else, yes, there is physical aspect to that, and um, but there is also an emotional aspect of that as well because I'm looking to help ease their emotions as well. I don't want them to deal like my staff. I don't want them to have to deal with all that stress. So I take it from them, and yet I put more of it on myself, and therefore I cause myself more stress. Let me give you an example too. Earlier this year, you guys know I deal with concussions a lot. I had 8 of them this year alone, just in this calendar year. And most recently I had one, I want to say in October, uh, end of September, beginning of October somewhere. Anyway, yeah, I think it was October, beginning of October. I At the beginning of this school year, 2 of my staff members were out with injuries before the school year even started. Um, and that's when I was taking on so much more and doing so much more. I had 2 new students that required a lot of attention. So I was continuously running between all these um, students trying to help and alleviate emotional and physical stress from other people, the staff members in my classroom. And to be honest with you, I wasn't very aware. I knew it was affecting me. I could feel that. But for some reason, I couldn't bring myself to stop. Again, because I'm a giver, I'm a light worker, and I knew it was there, but I didn't know it was affecting me that much. And then I took a blow to the head, a light one. It wasn't anything major. It was pretty, you know, nothing major. And it put me down. It put me down for 3 straight weeks. It took me to recover from that blow to the head with a concussion that was so bad. And I tried multiple times going back to the classroom, going back to work, and I couldn't do it. My body was so worn out and I wasn't setting my boundaries. I kept trying to get back into the classroom and help my staff out, even when I was sick. And I couldn't do it. Every time I went into school, I was sent home because I couldn't even get up. It was so exhausted. I was so exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically, and I didn't have my good boundaries. You want to try not to get to that point. That right there is an example of extreme not setting good boundaries and allowing it to take you to a point where you're so emotionally and physically spent that you can't even get up. And that's how I was for 3 weeks. I was down. I stopped trying to go back in, and I literally was in bed every day for hours trying to recover, trying to get myself back. And finally, I did. Now, I don't like to make these podcasts, as you guys probably know about me, but these are such great examples of what not good boundaries can do and why they are the cause of so much suffering. And there's no doubt in my mind that you guys are experiencing not setting good boundaries. Um, there's an aspect of your life where you're not setting good boundaries and how that's causing you frustration. Now, emotional boundaries, though, could also they could manifest themselves in so many ways. For instance, how much are you holding on to the and not forgiving someone for a wrong that they did? That is an absolute boundary that is within you that you might not be setting. So someone hurt you at some point in your life and you have yet to forgive them and you're holding on to it and you're not setting that boundary of letting go. Like that is an emotional toll that it takes on you. And how much are you carrying that with you? So there's a lot of crossover here into the aspects of love and forgiveness for sure. But it's also an emotional boundary that we can set to say to ourselves, hey, for my own personal well being, I have to let go. That is what boundaries are all about. Letting go so that you and the relationship can grow or move forward in whatever way it needs to go. Boundaries are all about that. That is what a boundary is. It is a basically a line in the sand that you must place in order to ensure that your energy stays high vibrational. So that is actually the result of a boundary, that you maintain a high vibration. And that is actually my next point here is it helps you lessen the amount of low vibration that you or we interact with. And that is the purpose of a boundary, to lower the amount of low vibration that we interact with. Those boundaries give you strength and will allow for that energy to stay more high and positive. So if you don't want to move, your friend asks you to move and you set that boundary of, hey, I need to heal, or I need to recenter myself. And you take that, you feel better. They might be in a rough spot, but that's not your problem. You are ultimately, your energy is so important. You are the reason that these boundaries are being set, because it is your energy that you want to be and maintain at a high level. There's only one way to do that: set good boundaries and strict, live from them. Don't compromise them. Keep that wall strong. Um, and you'll begin to see a difference in your life. And that difference is absolutely vital to your own personal and the relationships well-being. Now, I am going to talk about spiritual boundaries, but before I do that, let me tell you the one downside of setting a boundary, and this is just going to be something that we have to get over, guys, because the boundary is more important than what I'm about to tell you. What is the downside to setting a boundary? The downside of setting a boundary in some instances, is that you're going to lose people. Now, I say it's actually it's a con. It's a con in the sense that it's a negative aspect of a boundary, but in reality, it's actually a benefit. And I'll tell you why. Because if you set a boundary and you are telling somebody, a friend, maybe a friend, hey, this is affecting me, and I really need to like set this boundary to center myself and just to find my own peace. And someone comes back to you and the relationship distances as a result of you finding your own peace, you know that relationship was not meant to be. A friend of mine, he had a friend since this is a great example of an emotional and yeah, more emotional, an emotional boundary. He had a friend since he was a kid. Actually, they were best friends growing up. And when, as they got older, he started to notice that his friend wouldn't really do anything with him. He wouldn't hang out with him. He wouldn't go places with him like they used to. It was, it was like the distance in the relationship started to grow. And this guy he would go to his friends and he would say, "Hey, what is happening here? Like, I don't understand. I'm inviting you to different places, like to my house or to um on vacation, your family, my family, let's go out." And he kept being declined. And he didn't understand it was happening for years and years and years. And over the course of a decade, they their families got together maybe two times. And he was like completely dumbfounded as to like, what did I ever do? But he kept subjecting himself again and again and again, like, hey, let's go, let's go, let's go. And this friend kept saying no, or not. Actually, in some instances, the friend wouldn't even say no. It was such a crazy story. And sometimes he would just kind of like blow it off and not really even get a response. So after some time, this guy went to his friend and he said, look, I don't even know what to do anymore. I see that you're not going out with me, but you are going out with other people. You won't come to my house. You won't invite me to your house, but you are having other people over to your house. So I'm confused as to what's going on. And the friend just kept saying, nah, it's nothing, nothing to see here. Like, just it's the way it is. And so this guy, we'll call him John. I don't like to give names out, but anyway, John and his friend, let's say um, Paul. John kept saying to Paul, Paul's the friend who kept denying. John's like, Paul, what? I don't understand though. Like, you're having all these people over, but you won't invite me. And we're supposed to be brothers, friends, like best friends. We grew up together. We known each other our entire lives. What is happening? And Paul just kept denying. Nope, nothing's going on. Nothing, John. You're all's good, man. We're brothers. You're my brother, man. You're who I reach out to. Yet he doesn't reach out to him. So after a decade of this, now that's a long time that you don't typically you don't want to wait that long to set a boundary. You want to notice this stuff, set the boundary, and then have the relationship go as it well. Well, finally, John came in and said, look, I gotta be done. I love you and I want to be in your life, and I've tried a long time to be in your life. And clearly you're not really letting that happen. But Paul says, I don't even understand how this is happening. I'm telling you you're my brother. I'm telling you you're my friend. But the actions and the words aren't lining up. There is a mass separation here, misalignment of actions and words. They're just not in alignment. And Paul either doesn't want to recognize it, doesn't want to admit it, or straight up lying. Either one of them. But it's not. So one of those are true, if not all of them. And Paul doesn't want to admit it. So anyway, eventually John was like, all right, we're done. And Paul literally was like, well, I don't understand why it's happening, but okay, whatever. And then says, he was telling me about this. I was cracking up. So John's telling me this story. And he says, and he comes back to me and he goes, if you ever need me, I'm there. I'm like, I've needed you for 10 years and you never there for me. Like, I've been telling you for 10 years, asking you, what is going on here? You don't give me anything, and then now you're going to be there when I need you. Like, what happened when I really did need you and I asked you to hang out and come be with me and my family, and you denied it? Like, the introspection on Paul's part is so non-existent. It's comical, So anyway, that relationship is no longer, unfortunately, because John really did and does love him. Like, to this day, still would love to be in his life, but there is I'm sorry, John cannot continuously subject himself to that kind of decline or um negativity where the words and the actions are just so misaligned. It's too tough. That's not a relationship. And when someone wants to speak like that as if they are brothers, but there's no actions to indicate that there are, you need to set that boundary and be like, yeah, I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. Like, let me know when you're really serious about this relationship and maybe we can move on. But clearly you're somewhere else. And that's okay. Totally. That's what we need to understand, that these boundaries are a beautiful thing. Your boundary, like Paul was not being honest with his boundaries. He set them, he physically set them, but he was completely lying or misrepresenting those boundaries to John. He set them, just didn't want to tell anybody else about them. And okay, hey, that's fine. But it would be a mature move for Paul to say, hey, this is how I feel. These are the boundaries that I set. This is why I'm not doing what I'm doing, especially if they're brothers, you know. But that never happened. He never shared that. So he's clearly not even a good friend. He's just someone who's out looking after himself. He set his boundaries and he was dishonest about them, and then they moved on. And it's funny because there are so many other stories that like there are times when Paul would say, "Hey, let's go do this." And then John would be like, "I'm in. Okay, let's go do it." And then Paul would be like, never mind. Never mind. I don't want to do that." And then nothing would ever happen. Oh my gosh. The stories that he was telling me, I felt bad, you know, but I was cracking up because when you see the lack of introspection that people have to go within themselves and truly look at their actions and their words and really analyze them for what they are and to see the misalignment, it could really help us. Now, this is about boundaries though, and not about, you know, the introspection, although introspection is huge, it's crucial. Because introspection is how you set those boundaries. Introspection is needed to manage those boundaries and to set really good ones. So those are emotional, and there are so many other instances of emotional and physical boundaries. But the point that I need to make here, and that I really would like you guys to get from this is, you must have introspection in order to set boundaries. You must be able to go within and say, this is what I need in order to be more high vibrational, in order to be more positive, more energetic in my life. And then you set the boundary. Then you maintain the boundary very strictly. Without those three, there is nothing. You must acknowledge, you must do, and you must, or I'm sorry, you must acknowledge, introspect. Then you must set the boundary, and then you must maintain. I'm actually going to write that down. Introspect, set, and then maintain. So important. I'll try to actually put a little thing up on the screen for this podcast. And don't compromise. Know how important those boundaries are to your own well-being, and don't compromise. Now, the last type of boundary that there is the spiritual one. This spiritual one is different than the other two, physical and emotional. Spiritual boundaries, I see this so often where people will compromise their belief system because they don't want to offend somebody else. Here's an example. I just actually had a session the other day with a woman who was very, very strong connection to above. Very, very, she was a really strong medium, actually. But she kept compromising who she was because she didn't want to offend someone else. But she's not setting her own boundaries of owning who she is. And thus, she was creating confusion in her life. Now, there's an important aspect of this part. Like, To be honest with you guys, I own who I am. I'm a medium. I talk to spirit. I love it. And I'm not ashamed of it. And if you don't like it, that's your problem, not mine. But too many of us are not owning that part of us because we keep thinking people are going to think we're crazy. People are going to think we're nuts or they're not going to believe us because of whatever. We are completely missing our boundary. And we are now living according to someone else's boundary. And that's not the way this is meant to go. We have to own who we are and own our belief system. But with that, you do not push it upon someone else. However, if someone comes to you and they ask you for advice and you have a strong spiritual connection or you believe strongly in God and whatever it is you believe in, and you feel like coming from that perspective could potentially like provide some insight, then own that. Give it to them. Like I'm going to give it for instance. I always speak of love. And if someone comes to me, um I come from a place of love and I don't mind telling someone, "Hey, I'm coming from a place of love." Now, this is but that's my boundary. I'm owning who I am. My boundary is, hey, I want to come from this perspective, a perspective of love. But some people, when they hear the word love, they're like, whoa, oh my gosh, they get defensive, like, whoa, you can't use it. Like, that's too strong. We don't love each other. And it's not that. I'm coming from a place of spiritual love. But if I were to move about my life and live from someone else's um disbelief, then I'm not doing myself and love a a justice. I'm giving them a disservice because that is who I am. And if I'm not being truly who I am, then I'm not giving them the full experience of me. They came to me. They go to you. And if you're not going to speak from again, you're not pushing. And if they say, hey, I don't want to know about your spiritual beliefs, then okay, then I might not be the right person. I'm not saying you must we don't approach them with you must believe in what I'm saying. How you approach that is this is what I believe, and I believe this could help you in your current situation. I believe whatever it is, setting good spiritual boundaries could help you in your in your situation right now, or setting good emotional boundaries and coming from a heart space of love. Because look, here's another for instance: someone hurts you and you don't forgive them. You want revenge. You want karma to hurt them. That's not We're not setting our good boundaries. If we want to live in love, then we have to forgive not the action but the person, the soul. Forgive the soul, move on without the need or the desire to have them be hurt. And that's what I'm saying. And you can come from that perspective. Hey, from from a spiritual sense, I feel like you're only hurting yourself if you want revenge on that person because you're holding on to that lower vibrational aspect. And speaking in those terms in a spiritual sense is who you are. But if they say I don't like that, then hey, I might not be the person for you. But that's the approach that I take. That's the perspective that I live in. um the next aspect of spiritual boundaries is watching who you communicate with, both on a spiritual level, but also on a physical level. If you're around people on a regular basis that continuously speak negatively about anything, I dislike that. I dislike that person. I don't like doing this. I don't want to do that. I don't like this. This stinks. That stinks. That is draining emotionally, physically, and spiritually. You have to set a boundary here of either distancing yourself or letting them know, hey, This is not something that I like. Setting that boundary, but telling them and being honest with them, hey, this I don't like, I cannot continue to subject myself to this energy because it makes me feel this way, is such a powerful boundary, such a powerful one. And I encourage it highly. Now, again, you guys might think, yeah, but that's going to hurt their feelings. Okay, what's the alternative? You are hurt. You are drained. You have to step up. And this is what I've noticed with people that don't set good boundaries. Thyroid issues because they're not speaking their truth. Your throat chakra is all about speaking your truth. Truth and speaking your truth in a very mature, very truthful manner. Tactful, mature, very, very important aspect here. You don't want to go to someone, you don't want to allow that lack of boundary to affect you so greatly that you emotionally charge at that person and start like yelling and I can't take this anymore. I don't want your negativity. It's affected you so much that you are now emotionally ungrounded. And you don't want to get there. You want to nip this in the bud, set this boundary before you get to that point. You want to introspect and know that it's bothering you, set that boundary and then maintain it. Because without it, you're going to eventually crack potentially and lose that groundedness. And then you have to deal with the repercussions. Then you might lose a relationship in a negative way. And you don't want to do that. Setting a good positive boundary could actually, like I said earlier, grow a very positive relationship. A relationship that's meant to be will stay. There's truth there. But people that don't set good boundaries usually have issues in their throat. So a good way to overcome or to regulate the throat chakra is by setting these boundaries. People that come to me that have an open heart and a closed throat, you know immediately you're probably a giver. And I've done this, like I've been reading people for so long. I just know this now. I can read people's energy, and I people that come to me for sessions, I will go into their energy before they even come to me. I only have their first name, and I will read their energy before they even arrive for a session. All I know is their first name and when they're coming. That's it. And I'll go in, and I'm not bragging. I'm just saying this is how much your energy is affected when you don't have boundaries, or it is when you do have boundaries, how much it's affected. I can go in there and tell you, yeah, you're not setting good boundaries. And if your heart's open, I know that you're probably a giver, a lover, like you love people very much, but you are not setting the boundaries properly enough. Now, if your heart's closed, if you're having issues in your heart, then you're probably not speaking your truth about a trauma that you're holding on to. And again, this is just something that I've learned from reading hundreds of people over a decade of doing this. I just know people's energy now. I know how to read it by going through their chakra system. So important. But you see the stuff over and over again, and you start to recognize that people aren't setting good boundaries. Here's the thing: if you're in an intimate relationship, and you have an intimate relationship with like a lover, or it's a relationship, a marriage, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, and you're not setting good boundaries, those relationships, that's going to take its toll. And so many people stay in relationships and don't set good boundaries. If you are being emotionally abused, physically abused, or your spouse, lover, whatever, boyfriend, girlfriend isn't treating you well, and you don't have that boundary of, hey, this is unacceptable. And if you don't change this, we're done. If you don't have that boundary, how does that person know that they shouldn't do this? if you don't have that boundary for yourself. If you continue to accept it, how do they know if you don't communicate the boundary and maintain it? Introspect enough to know that you need it, set it, and then if you're not maintaining it, but the thing is, if you keep going back to the relationship and the same things keep occurring, we have to understand there comes a point in time where enough is enough. No, we're done. And I get it. Some instances are easier said than done, but you have to take steps to set these boundaries and maintain them and do not compromise them. I will tell you now, when you set a good boundary, though, for yourself, you begin to really listen a lot more. And that is a really good skill to develop, listening rather than speaking. Really, really good skill. And sometimes I even struggle with that, even now. I'm trying, but sometimes I struggle with it. And as you listen and then you begin to speak, you can choose words that are more high vibrational and in alignment with where you like to come from, which hopefully we all like to come from the heart. And again, what is the heart? The heart is love. The heart is forgiveness, acceptance, not acceptance in people crossing your boundaries, but acceptance in knowing that, hey, this is who this person is. And you making the decision of, do I need to remove myself from this situation, from this person? If they're not willing to change, I need to have the boundary of setting distance between us now for my own. And I'm going to say something here, self preservation. Now, that sounds like an ego term. And yes, there is a sense of that, not ego, but actual self preservation in energy. Your energy is so important. And it's not self preservation, it's actually energetic preservation, loving, um, uh, loving, I just totally, my mind completely lost there. It just went in the Neverland. Um, Energetic preservation. That's really what this is ultimately all about. If you're continuously brought down, you are losing, you could potentially lose that loving aspect of who you are. And now some people will argue that, well, isn't the whole point of people being that we interact with each other and we love regardless of who they are? Yes, 100% that, yes, that is true. Yeah, and continue to do that. But you can love from a distance. And loving from a distance is an act of self love. And self love is just as important as the love for someone else. If you continuously subject yourself to things that bring you down or diminish your energy, you are not setting a boundary of self love. So there are boundaries for self and there are boundaries for others, and both are equal in importance. Set them both. It is important. Both are. And you don't want to go continuously with crossing them. Set them, introspect to know that you need them, what it is that you need, and communicate with the individuals or yourself, and then maintain that. Nothing more important as far as boundaries go. All right. Thank you guys. Hopefully, I know this was really quick, but very, very powerful. Set those boundaries. Introspect enough to know, okay, is this a boundary? All the boundaries are going to be ultimately for you because they're your boundaries. But is it a boundary that you need to do? Like, for instance, me in my classroom where I needed to step back, I needed to set my own boundary for myself. Or is it a boundary for someone else? Hey, that ultimately is for you as well. Hey, just an FYI, There's too much negativity here, and I need to distance myself if we don't change that. I'm not telling you to change. I accept you for who you are. But in order for our relationship to continue, I don't want this. So I get it. If you don't want to operate in my boundary, that's fine. But then if not, we're just going to have to separate. And you will lose people. That is absolute. Part of the journey, the spiritual journey, is losing people for sure. And being okay with that, understanding that it is part of the process because because of boundaries, you are now owning your own energy. You are now setting your own boundaries and your own importance and your own understanding of how important it is, how important your own energy is. And without it, we continuously subject ourselves to things that we might not want to be a part of. Your job, your occupation is also a boundary. If you continuously subject yourself to a job you don't like, to a group of people that you don't want to be around, doing something you don't want to do, that is a very unhealthy boundary. And you have to take the steps that you need to change that. Now, I will tell you, nothing's ever perfect. So you're always going to have situations that you might need some reprieve from, but that's okay. That's the boundary. Okay. You can have you can have rough days in your occupation, where they're stressful, but if you like it, you enjoy your work and you don't mind doing it, then that's fine. Obviously. Someone but know you when you need to come in and out of a relationship within work or somewhere else, a friendship, because you need to set those healthy boundaries. Oh, you could even say, hey, like, let's just talk to a person that's like continuously negative. You could even say to them, I am only going to, let's not talk every day. Let's maybe talk, once every other week or something like that. I think I need to touch a little bit more on the spiritual one, the spiritual boundaries. There are now for mediums, they get communication a lot. And sometimes there are entities or groups of entities that want to come and communicate with you that are not necessarily of a high vibration. Now, I do this work a lot when I'm doing house clearings or removing curses from people, which I've done. And setting those boundaries is very important. If you're doing light work and you're trying to help a spirit cross over, and that spirit is a low vibrational spirit, a human spirit, but still low vibrational, he's carrying a lot of density with it. You can begin to, that anytime that spirit wants to communicate with you, you set your rules. I will only accept loving communication. And if it doesn't, it'll keep trying to push in. But what you need to do is just stay focused in love. So that's a spiritual boundary. And I'll tell you, that happens a lot when you're doing light work. When you're coming in contact with a spirit that's low vibrational, it just wants to hit you because it wants to bring you down. But you have that boundary of, nah, I'm focused only on love. And anything that is not love, we're not communicating. And you just stay focused on love and you send it love. Literally send it love. And it's going to keep trying to bring you down, bring you down, bring you down. And you're just like, nope, I send you love. Thank you for showing me all of your low vibration, but I send you love. It's such a powerful boundary. And when you do that work and you see how powerful boundaries are and the effectiveness that they can have on a soul, ooh, you're going next level. And it's an awesome level because it is that kind of work that I've seen that there's nothing that I do that is not from experience. Everything I do is because I've experienced it firsthand, the importance, the power of setting good boundaries, of being of love, and really holding that boundary, maintaining that boundary of love. So, so powerful energetically, man. And when you set them on a soul level, even if someone on a physical level feels hurt, on a soul level, you just opened up Pandora's box of love that can be flowed to that soul because you are showing that soul the importance of self love, not self preservation, like I said earlier, but preservation of self love. Huge, 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 huge. So important. Um, and so powerful. So with that, I'm going to end this podcast. I am going to do a channel, but I will end my version of it and allow them to speak. My children, grateful we are for these opportunities of connection. And we tell you now, delayed in speaking to you, we have been for some time, and we do say thank you now for this opportunity. Be very aware of who you are as an individual. And yes, the absolute power of setting a boundary for your personal growth is vital to growth. It is imperative to the point that one does not grow without setting proper boundaries in awareness and understanding in growth, setting boundaries of growth in understanding. It is without these boundaries that one allows too much to occur to another before one limits the lower vibrational aspects of this realm and their hold grip on themselves. We should not be focused on the low vibration, but primarily be focused on the aspects of growth and love that comes from the action of setting a good, loving, self loving boundary. And we are grateful for this. We mustn't hold on to the cross of another that they burden, but rather on the cross of oneself that they carry with them and know that it will lighten with the idea of setting a boundary that is built and formed in love. When you come from a loving place, whether it be self love and not ego self love, but true heart space self love, it is uncompromised. It is important to one's own abilities moving forward. And yes, there is a great truth that one can find in setting their own boundaries. This is true. But for each person, it will be different. Their truth, their lesson is different from the next. But we ask you now to find your lesson, to find your growth, what you are meant to grow from in setting the boundary of who you are and finding greater peace in setting these boundaries. Peace is an important aspect of this to find because that is what will come from setting the boundary and focusing more on that peace rather than the discord that it causes within another. And we are grateful for this understanding. We ask you now to go in peace and set the boundary of finding that peace. And we are grateful within yourself. Go in peace always and love. Love for thyself and love for the another, for another. It is within this love so much as possible. This world, though, this realm is changing currently, and there is more to come. Do not hesitate to set these boundaries and know that you are capable of so much more in love, and we are grateful. Go in peace always, my children. Enoch speaking. We are with you always and ask you to call upon us at any given moment in time so that we may proceed to this realm in great assistance of light and love to your own soul. We are with you always. Thank you. All right, my friends. Thank you all so much for joining me. I am truly grateful for your presence here today. And I do want to give a big shout out to Teresa. Teresa, thank you so much for she comments and likes all my videos, and I really do appreciate that. Anybody else want to do that, please subscribe. Please give me a like, comment, whatever. I am grateful. Although that's not why we're here, it is always helpful. I know these videos find who they are intended to find, and for that we are grateful. We always come from a place of love and acceptance of all, even though we set our boundaries and we distance ourselves from some people, like John and Paul, like me and class. The boundaries are important, but we always come from love. We accept who other people are and their and their souls and the decisions that they make, but we don't necessarily have to be around them or with them all the time or communicate. And for that, we're grateful. Thank you so much, guys. Take care of yourself. Love you all. Bye.